Where we are. We're on Chaf Aleph on the days.
Yes.
Okay, and we're about 1/3 of the way down. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. Mitzvahs ner Chanukah ner ishu beiso. Okay?
Right.
So this is the last Gemara we had done was we got into this because of the types of wicks and candles and so forth, and whether you can you can be mishtamish in the light, or you can't be mishtamish in the light, or it's in their mitzvah and so forth. And the last thing was we said that the time for Chanukah candles is Ashetichla Regum and Ashuk, which we said was the time when the Talmud left the marketplace. By the way, for those who are learning Daf Yomi, and with Daf Yomi people here, we just had a few days ago, the time for tefillin, it's interesting, I never saw that, the time for tefillin it's machlokas whether tefillin can be put on at night, but there are actually three opinions. One opinion is it's only until chashech, until sunset. One opinion is you can even wear it at night, and the middle opinion is Ashetichla Regum and Ashuk. Okay, which is somehow is like this in between point where it's already dark but it's not dark, it's almost night. It is night. It's beginning night, right? And you have to remember the issue about tefillin is a little more complicated. It has to do as well with treating them with certain kavod and respect, and not no flatulence. You don't fall asleep with tefillin and so forth. But I never knew it came up in terms of tefillin. Anyways, Tana Rabbanan. Everybody have it? About 40% of the way down the line. The first one lies Talmud Tan Rabban. This is the famous Gemara. These are the famous Gemaras. Mitzvahs Chanukah ner ishu beiso. So the mitzvah of Chanukah candles is one candle, one every night. Each night, one candle per family. Not 8 candles, not 7 candles. One candle. Period. Okay. And if you think that's nothing, you have to remember there weren't that many candles to begin with. People didn't have a whole lot of illumination. So if you suddenly put a candle in the window, right, it will stand out. You see this lahavdil with the goyim. They put the candle in the window for Christmas. The old minhag of the goyim was to put a candle in the window. One candle, not 8 candles, not 7 candles. I remember seeing this as a kid.
Yeah. You see it in New York State.
You must have religious.
I always thought it was.
I grew up in a very religious Italian neighborhood. I had the convent down the block. There was a Catholic hospital was a quarter of a mile away. This was a place where the old Italians, there was a big garden with all the statues, v'chula. So I saw this.
So are we saying that?
So we're saying the real mitzvah of Chanukah is one candle. One candle. Don't tell me what you do today, but one candle every night.
So the argument about whether you go down or up in candles is irrelevant.
It's going to be on a higher level, on a mahadran level. Okay,
I got you. Okay.
So one candle per night, and that's all. That's it. All right. And you say, just to point out, it's going to stand out, and you would probably need a shamus to be able to use the light because there's no other ambient light in the room. So that's the mitzvah of Chanukah, is one candle per household. Ishu beiso. V'amahadran ner lekol echad v'echad. And the mahadran is one candle for every individual. It does not mean what you think it means of going to 8 candles on the 8th night. One candle, if you have a husband and wife, it's 2 candles. Or if you have a husband and wife and 2 children, your standard North American family, you have 4 candles. 4 candles the first night, 4 candles the second night, 4 candles the third night, and so forth. Okay, now you're going to say, well, what night of Hanukkah is it? Well, it doesn't make a difference. It's all the same, right? When you put out candles for Shabbos, it doesn't say which parsha it is, right? You just say Shabbos, right? It's Shabbos, and next week is Shabbos, last week is Shabbos. And when you light Yontif candles, it's not clear what Yontif it is, right?
If you had more than 6 kids, you have a problem. But
Light candles and more.
Why have a problem?
we just light more candles.
Just like more candles.
Gotcha.
It looks like really like what do you call these gardens in the convents.
Perfect.
But if you have a dozen kids, you'd have a dozen kids plus parents.
Mm-hmm.
So the mahadran and the mahadran, and on mahadran and the mahadran level is, and this is the level that we're used to. Beishamai omrim yom rishon madlik shemoneh mikan ve'elach poches v'holech. So Beishamai says that on the first night you light 8. And then you go down. And the first night you light 1 candle, and as you go through it, you continue to go up in terms of the numbers, so that the 8th night is 8 candles. Now here we have a machlokas, a very important machlokas in terms of what this actually means. We have 3 levels: mitzvah, mahadran, and mahadran and mahadran. Right. So The Mahadran is clear. The basic level is clear. The Mahadran level is clear. It's one per person per family. The question is: Mahadran min Mahadran build on the basic level, or does it build on the level of Mahadran? That's a fundamental machloket. And Tosfot actually says here: Nira. It says Tosfot Mahadran min Mahadran. Says Tosfot Nira Lari the Beis Shammai Beis Hillel lo kaima aner ishu baito. That Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are not arguing about ner ishu baito. Shekain yoter hider dika. So if you let's see. So what does Beis Shammai? What does Tosfos say? That we're not going to lo kaima. I'm sorry, I read it wrong. Beis Shammai Beis Hillel lo kaima ela aner ishu ba'isa. Okay, that the Mahadran is going on the basic level. Okay, it's a very famous sheet of Tosfos, which I'll tell you how it comes out in the halacha, that if you have one candle per household in the first night, so you'll have one candle in Mahadran and a Mahadran. The second night you will have 2 candles for the household. The third night you'll have 3 candles for the household, regardless of the number of people. So even if you have a dozen kids, you still stick with the rudimentary number of 1 menorah or 1 candle per night.
Right, except you keep hiding if it's more nights if you're Mahadran.
Correct. Okay. Now we follow actually the opinion of the Rambam. The Rambam, which is actually not exactly the opinion of the Rambam. Rambam says that the Mahadran min Mahadran builds on the Mahadran level. So therefore, if you have, let's say, let's take that family of 4 people, 2 adults and 2 children. So the first night you light 4. We light 4 menorahs of 1 candle. The second night 4 menorahs of 2 candles. The third night 4 menorahs of 3 candles. The Rambam actually is a little different. The Rambam seems to talk about aggregate number of candles. Okay, so therefore, which would be very confusing for you and I, who do not live in the world of the Rambam, because what would we be doing? We would see that the first night there'd be 4 lights. Right. The second night there'd be 8 lights. So you see the second night, you don't know really, is it the second night for 4 people, or the 4th night for 2 people, or the 8th night for 1 person. Correct? Because the Rambam does not talk about this different menorahs. It's about an aggregate number of candles. But that's how the Rambam portrays it. What is actually funny is the Rambam is, of course, a Sfaradi. Tosfos are Ashkenazim. When you look how the halacha comes down, the Ramah tends to follow the Rambam. He twists it in terms of menorahs. The Sfaradim, the Rav Yosef Kairo, the Mechaber follows the Tosfos. So you have a situation that it looks like the tradition is kind of crossed, and therefore Sfaradim, the real minhag of Sfaradim, there's a whole confusion in today whose minhag is which minhag and so forth. But the real Anshe Mizrach have 1 menorah per family. Right?
Just one. Right.
Just one menorah for family. Right. As Tosfos says, even though Tosfos is Ashkenazim, of course. But this, okay, I'm saying today in the modern world, there's a confusion of minhags from the Anshe Mizrach, minhag Sfardim, minhag Ashkenazim. There's Nusach Sfard. There's all kinds of things get confused. But you will find that some people, therefore, if you speak to people, they will light 1 menorah. Mm-hmm. But today the minhag really is, especially candles are so cheap and oil is not that expensive. Usually people light their own menorah. So it's really following the minhag Ashkenazim. Are we all Ashkenazim here? Can we speak amongst friends? Okay. So the minhag of Ashkenazim really is to.
He's not here.
All right, that's true. But the minhag among Ashkenazic Jewry is really to follow 1 menorah per individual in the house. Question is, does a wife light her own menorah? Does a wife light for the husband together? That's a subset of that discussion. But really, our understanding today in the minhag in Ashkenazim is. I'll try it again. Is Mahadran and a Mahadran is building on the Mahadran, which builds on the basic level. Basic level is 1 for the family. The second level Mahadran is one per person, and the second one is going to be 1 to 8 per person. Okay, and we're going to follow obviously Beis Hillel. We go 1 to 8, not 8 to 1. Okay, but that's the basic idea here of what Tosfos is saying. Okay, and this. Does
Beis Shammai give a reason why he's reducing it?
Yeah, we're going to learn the reasons of Beis Shammai. The logic of 1 menorah per family increasing per night, which is not our minhag, it's a minhag of Sfaradim, which I told you is what Tosfos says. Tosfos gives you the reason, and it's clear. It's very clear which night of Chanukah it is. Like one menorah in the window, or one menorah in the table, or one menorah at the door. For the entire family, you see the 6 nights, the 6th night of Hanukkah for that family, for all the Jewish people. Right? As opposed to the way the Rambam has it, which I told you, if you see the second night, you see 8 candles, you don't know if it's the second night for 4 people, or 4th night for 2 people, or the 8th night for 1 person. Right? No, I mean, the only way you would know this is if you come by the same window every night and you see the numbers increasing proportionally.
Maybe the Rambam assumed everybody has a menorah. That was like an undefined assumption. I don't mean.
Well, yes.
No.
Everybody had a menorah?
Like, I don't know. I don't read the Rambam, but maybe the assumption is everybody had a menorah. If it says 8 candles, he means like 4 menorahs.
I don't know.
Whatever. I don't know.
I don't know. Candles were very expensive.
Exactly.
I mean, we in the Yukon Purka and in the Mishiverachas, we say special
Yeah,
about
exactly.
the Kiddush Lavdola.
Yeah.
People who donated the wine, right, and people who and the candles for the Beit Knesset and for Avdallah, or the Yain for the Avdallah. The candles, a lot of candles. The old manual had to be lit and taken care of and lit. I mean, you had to make candles by hand. This idea of 44 candles coming in a box is it's a fairly modern phenomenon. And by the way, some of you may be old enough to remember when they only came in orange.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, I only saw leftover boxes that I asked one time, why are they all orange? And they said that's when it was. Like Model Ts were in all colors as long as it was black.
They couldn't do it. They just did one color. I remember they were orange. Yeah.
Right.
Plain.
So
They were plain.
correct. So at any rate,
Not twisted.
Yeah, but not like today. Like
right.
nowadays.
But by the way, just as an aside, if you do use candles, and you can use candles, I just have to point out that the more candles you light as you go through the holiday, the less time that they tend to burn.
Yeah, you said
Right. So
They eat
we were
each
going to do a
other.
test. I never did it.
you've got time now.
They're eating each
I
other.
still have.
Right. How long will it take for the candle to burn?
Yeah, stuff we can do.
So if you either buy 2 choices, either buy taller candles. There are taller candles available in the marketplace for a premium, or you go over to a different kind of fuel which you can put more in, such as oil, which burns slower, or oil or liquid paraffin. And they're easier now. They have the. I'm sorry.
Beeswax of the.
I've never used beeswax.
Isn't that what you use
Solid.
Erev Shabbos to make sure they last for at least an hour?
No.
Erev Shabbos. We use oil.
Just put more oil. That's what we do.
If they have a good oil menorah, it should be able to last for like 4 hours or something.
Put more oil.
But yeah, the beeswax are the tallest one. I don't know if they're beeswax or paraffin or whatever it is. That is a good point. Yes, you put them in deep freeze. That's right. If you freeze them, they will burn slower. Thank you. That's an excellent suggestion. Okay. Well, but it will burn perceptibly slower. At any rate, so this is where the mitzvah comes from. So once again, we have one per person, and then 1 to 8 or 8 to 1. And the machlokas is that 1 to 8 to 8 to 1 on top of the basic mitzvah, on top of the mahadran level of the mitzvah. And on the 1 to 8 to 8 to 1, we have Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. The Gemara is going to discuss that, what the reason is for Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. So I'll read that again. Mahadran and a mahadran. Beis Shammai omrim yom rishon madlik shmona mikan ve'elach pochet v'holech. Beis Shammai says start with 8 and you work your way down. We don't have a shamas in this mix yet. Beis Hillel omrim yom rishon madlik achas mikan ve'elach mosi v'holech. The first day is 1 and you go up each day, which is our minhag. We always, we tend to follow Beis Hillel, except for some minor exceptions to the rule. Amar Ula. So this machlokas in Beis Shammai, we're now going to offer some reasons what the machlokas is based on. This is what Morty asked. Amar Ula, pligi b'trei Amorai b'ma'arava. There were 2 Amoraim in the west, in Eretz Yisrael, Rav Yossi bar Av and Rav Yossi bar Zvida. We don't know who says what, but we know that they argued about it. But the tradition of who said which side got confused. Chad Amar, time of the Beis Shammai keneged yomim hanichnasim, the time of the Beis Hillel keneged yomim hayotzim. So one said we're counting days that are coming in, and which means the future days that will be, or we're counting the days that have already gone through, right? Are we counting down or counting up? Ask kids on the second day of school how many days left until the June break. They will know right away. If not the second day, by the second week, right? But most of the time we think about counting up. but you can, for example, many times you'll see over an MP3 players, and I only put that example because it's fairly common. Depending on how you set it, you're counting the length. The length counts up to the length of the track, or can you count down how much time is left on the track? Do you want to know you're going to stop for listening 3 minutes or 13 minutes? It's more important to you than sometimes whether you're at the first minute of the track or the 10th minute of the track, because you don't know when it's going to end. So most of our counting is actually counting up, right? So this is the more logical one, which is what Beis Hillel is saying, and Beis Shammai says no, because psychologically we're looking to what the future will be, and so therefore the first night we're saying that there are 8 nights left until the Hanukkah holiday is over. The second night there are 7 nights left until the holiday is over. That's the first discussion, or the first machloket in the reason for it. V'chadamar, and the second of this pair, Rav Yossi bar Ava and Rav Yossi bar Zvida, time with the Beis Shammai connected Porei Achag, the time with the Beis Hillel, Malim B'Kodesh Ve'Moredim. So Porei Achag are the korbanos, or the porim that were brought on Sukkot. There were 70 different porim that were brought through the 8 days, through the 7 days of Sukkot, and then there was one brought on one on Shmini Atzeret. No, there were 70 brought on the 7 days of Sukkot.
Yes.
I say that correctly, and one which was brought on Shmini Atzeret. And they start counting. Thank you very much. Start from 13 down. 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 7. I think 7 is the lowest. And if you count them up, you will go. You'll equal 70, which is equal to the Shivim Umos Olam, which of course we probably could argue all night. Why is it that we Jews who are persecuted by the nations of the world, why are we bringing korbanos on their behalf? Okay, what's going on here? Things are, because God says so. Because we could. Because
God cares.
Because God,
He cares about them.
Because He cares about them, and because the better off they are, sometimes the better off we are.
For sure.
So,
and it's clear that holiday is when all the goyim are going to come to Yerushalayim someday.
Good. Right.
In fact, they do right now. They have all these pilgrimages, as you know. Right now, it's Sukkot every year. The Christians 4,000 or 5,000 come for specifically because the Navi says in that day they will come to Har HaBayit on Sukkot.
So and let's remember that Rosh Hashanah is about God being a king over the entire world.
Absolutely.
The idea of Malchiot, Vayashem Lamelech HaKol Haaretz, it's not just over the Jewish people, it's everybody. And by the way, I was looking over the other day the Haftarah for the second day of Rosh Hashanah. The first day is Chana. Second day of Rosh Hashanah is the one with Rachel Mavako al Banea. But if you look, there's part that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is speaking about the future of the Jewish people that come to Yerushalayim, and then in the middle it turns HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to the nations that they'll also come, they'll also recognize. Absolutely. So it's included there as well. And then it talks about Rachel. Right. Lefanecha kivnei maro. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
There you
go. So at any rate, coming back to the analogy, so the Hanukkah story or the Hanukkah count, according to Beis Shammai, is going to follow the decreasing numbers that the Torah gave to us in bringing korbanos for the nations of the world on the holiday of Sukkot. Now, you're all going to say, what does Sukkot have to do with Hanukkah? Right. So, any suggestions? What does Sukkot have to do with Hanukkah? So, one suggestion is we know that when the first Hanukkah, or the first, not maybe the pre-Hanukkah, the first year when they came into the Beis Hamikdash, because they probably made Hanukkah as a holiday the next year, so they actually celebrated Sukkot when they dedicated the Beis Hamikdash. It says in one of the books of Maccabees, maybe fourth book of Maccabees, or first, I don't recall, because they didn't get a chance to observe Sukkot during that year, because of all the decrees and all the fighting with the Syrian Greeks, so people couldn't keep Sukkot. So they also brought the lulav and etrog. It wasn't really Sukkot, but they kind of incorporated this as well. So there is somehow a reminder of this in the holiday of Hanukkah, and with the Sukkot gets combined together. It's the only reason that I can think of. There may be other reasons as well, maybe mystically. But at any rate, you do see that if God is counting, that's the key idea. If God is counting, and there are very few places where you have consecutive counting. Right. Most counting seems to go up, the first day, the second day, the third day, the fourth day, but very few places where you find sanctifying things. And Hanukkah is about candles and sanctifying candles and the holiness. So you see that there's a concept of kind of starting with the max
Right,
and
Hashem
working
is
your way
going
down.
down, yeah.
Hashem goes down. So therefore, we're not going to start at 13 because we're starting at 8, but we're going to start at 8 and work our way down to 1. So that's called Parei HaChag, the Parim of the Chag of Sukkot. Okay, so who says this? This is the second opinion, the second reason given for Beit Shammai. Beis Hillel omrim, the time of the Beis Hillel, the Malim Mekodesh Ve'Moridim, that we are going to go up in Kedusha, we always increase and we don't go down. So Malim Mekodesh Ve'Moridim, and the Gemara has reasons that they learn why we say Malim Mekodesh Ve'Moridim. We learn out certain psukim, Masechet Menachos for this. So therefore we're going to, it's not really, this is a difference between levels of Kedusha and aggregate number of candles. You could differentiate between the two, which is probably why Beis Shammai does not buy into this reason. But the more candles, the more holy candles, the more holiness that there is. Okay?
Like you said, it's...
Well, it certainly is more light.
There's certainly more now. Yes, there is. Correct. Okay. How many Yahrzeit candles do you light on Yom Kippur? I'm not going to touch that.
My mother used to like one for everybody.
One for
but
each
halacha is one usually.
So one for everybody, plus one for Gesundlecht. I actually
One
read
for
that.
Gesundlach?
You didn't hear there was a Gesundlecht. There used to be
No,
one
we
for
don't.
everybody plus
We
one
don't like
additional one.
Gesundlecht.
Or additional one for
I didn't
life. I don't
understand.
know.
I didn't know that.
I don't know that either.
Gesundlecht.
Yeah. And then people, of course, would light them in shul, not only because they were afraid about the house burning down, because in case one went out, you didn't want your light to go out. There was a bad luck and bad concerns. I actually read an interesting minhag. I came across, I looked it up, that there seems to have been a minhag that at Yizkor, not on Yom Kippur, on Yizkor and Yontif, that they would light candles in the shul on Yizkor. I came across it the other day. I've forgotten one of the chuvas in the Maril has a chuva.
Now we light like the plaques with the little bulbs.
But no, but we light that the day before, and we light the Yahrzeit candle the night before. But it looks like the people would light it in shul, and the reason this comes up because he was talking about whether this was really there's no use at all. Right? When you do a malacha on Yontif, there has to have some kind of utilitarian purpose. So you could argue that, we may argue against it, that the light of the Yahrzeit candle that you're lighting on Yontif, because we go the 7th day into the 8th day, right? So, but you're adding light.
Yeah.
Or at least, in fact, some poskim say you should light in a place where it will give additional light. If you put it right underneath the large chandelier where all the candles are burning, you may not get that effect. But if you put it off on the side, maybe it will add light to a corner. But if you light it in the daytime in the shul, where there's enough light as it is, there was really no purpose to it. So he's actually talking about the concept of not lighting this because there's really no tzorech for it at all. Right? We have a rule for Yontif that mitoch shehutra l'tzorach ochel nefesh hutra l'kol, because you can prepare for food and eating, you can prepare for any need you can do anything that you have a need on Yontif, but you have to have a need. So I never saw that, I never heard about that, but I just came across it the other day. I thought I'd mention. Anyone ever heard of that?
You can wash your clothes or something, you mean?
Not wash your clothes.
Anything you have a need for?
Can you wash your clothes?
No, but you mean besides achal nefesh?
You could wash your clothes if you were going to wear your clothes, and if you're not going to put on the machine. I guess you have no clothes.
We don't do that, but you said
right.
achal nefesh.
But for example, carrying, right? You carry with no eruv.
Right.
So there's a good example. You carry on Shabbos. You can't carry hotzah as a malacha. So there's an example where you actually can carry on Yontif. Okay. There are other examples. I'm not sure we want to spend time now. Okay. So at any rate, this is Malam B'Kodesh Ve'Moridim. So you're going up. The more candles, the greater the need is. And of course, if you kind of go back to what we said before, depending on how you understand Beis Hillel, right? If you're going from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, you're going 4 to 8 to 6 to 12, 4 to 8 to 12 to 16, and so forth. So that the last night you have 64 candles. As you continue growing in number, you're really, of course, adding all these candles and candles and candles. Okay, so we have two reasons for. One was about we're counting ahead or we're counting down. The second one is Porei HaChag, the counting of the Karbanos on Sukkos versus Malam B'Kodesh, which is a general rule that comes in many places. Okay, another reason, or another set, I should say. Amar Rabba Bar Chanan Rav Yochanan. Rav Yochanan Shnei Zakenim Hoya B'Tzidon. There were 2 Zakenim in Sidon. Sidon the Sidon. Once again, this is the Eretz Yisrael kind of stuff. These are people. This is Talmud Bavli, and they had 2 Zakenim who were in Ma'arava. That may have been Caesarea, may have been the Galil. Then these people are in Sidon.
Sidon may have belonged to us at some point. I think it did.
It did.
I think Sidon belonged.
Yes,
to
correct.
us.
If it didn't belong to us, there was surely a Jewish community there. We have many times we talk about Sidon. So what I'm saying is these are people we don't know who their name is. But we have a tradition, two Zakanim and Sidon, Echad Asa Beis Shammai ve'Echad Asa Beis Hillel. So one followed Beis Shammai, one followed Beis Hillel. We have to remember that Beis Shammai always followed Beis Shammai, right? It's kind of unusual, the holy people of Beis Shammai, but they followed the law according to Beis Shammai. Like saying the Kalbach always daven in the Kalbach minyan, okay? Kalbach daven in the Kalbach minyan even for Neila, okay? Kalbach didn't only daven Kabbalah Shabbos in the Kalbach minyan. So Beis Shammai always followed Beis Shammai's opinion. So Zen nosin tam l'dvarav keneged parei achag, v'zen nosin tam l'dvarav t'malam kodesh ve'in moridim. So they followed the second line of reasoning, that the machlokas is based upon the decreasing number of the animals of the sacrifice on Sukkos versus the increasing malam kodesh ve'in moridim. We always want to try to increase kedusha as we go along. Okay, so that's really the first piece about this, and the really important part is remembering that we have this very fundamental machlokas, which twists that the Ashkenazim follow the Rambam, who's a Sephardi, and the Sephardim tend to follow the Tosfot, who are Ashkenazim, about whether it's an aggregate number or is it a number of menorot per people in the household, or is it one candle going from 1 to 8 for the entire household. Good? Questions, comments? We're good, okay? Next piece. I just lost the place. Tan Rabbanan. Ner Chanukah mitzvah lanicha al Pesach beiso mibachutz. Okay, so the ideal place to light the Chanukah menorah is outside your door, is at the doorpost, on the outside of the door facing outside. Now Tosfos points out that we're talking about a house that is facing the street. Well, but in many cases, especially if you learn Masechet Eruvin, the houses did not face directly onto the street. They faced the chutzner. That was a common courtyard. It's a common courtyard. It's a common courtyard, and Tosfos points out that if there's a common courtyard, then the place actually where that you would light it would not be in front of your house, where no one else is going to see except the people in this private, semi-private courtyard, but actually on the Pesach to the courtyard.
Gotcha.
The Pesach HaChatzer.
Makes sense.
The outside Pesach, which is facing the street. So what you would probably end up happening is you'd have, let's say, here it gets really complicated. You have let's say there are 4 houses in this courtyard, okay? So then you have 4 menorahs. It's kind of like 4 mailboxes, right? Like you see sometimes the rural areas, or like we have the super boxes.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so 4 menorahs. Now, if you're going to follow Ner Isha Beiso, it's easy. Right, 1 candle. If you follow Mahadrin, it's easy. Right, but if you follow Mahadrin, Mina Mahadrin, and we follow what we Ashkenazim do, which follow the Rambam, which is you have menorah per person in the household, it's going to tend to add up. And it was like the Rambam that it's not menorahs but just aggregate candles. It's going to be really like a big mishmash of candles outside that chatzer. Okay. So as a matter of fact, the Gemara will talk about, and we'll get to it in Daf Chav Gimel, about if you have two entrances. If there are 2 entrances onto your house, you need to light menorahs in both entrances. Okay, so it's really not that you have
2 streets, let's say.
Or you have a front door and a back door that are both doors that are used fairly frequently. It gets open on 2 streets because people will pass on one door, may not see the menorah, they'll think that you're not doing the mitzvah. Not that you have to, but it's really in terms of pursuing nisa. Okay, so. And if it is, and if it's 1 courtyard, even if you have multiple houses, right? If you had multiple houses with multiple doors, but they both enter into the courtyard, you're lighting at the entrance to the courtyard, you only need 1 menorah. But if you have houses that are separate with multiple entrances, front and back, then you would need maybe more menorah in each entrance. Okay, back at the Gemara here. Ner Chanukah mitzvah l'nichal Pesach beisal mi bachutz. Okay, so where do you light it? On the petach, the door outside. Im hayadar ba'aliyah. And by the way, people do this in Eretz Yisrael a lot. You've been to Eretz Yisrael, people light their menorahs outside.
They have a hole.
They have a hole. They build a hole in, or they have looks like a box, looks like an aquarium kind of box with vents on it. Right, it's not an aquarium, but it's the same kind of contraption with glass that will withstand heat, tempered glass, and has vents to keep out to vent the heat as well, and the smoke and the gases. Today in North America, some people do it, but much less because we live in a very inhospitable climate, like menorahs outside in December. Plus, the truth is, there's a lot of going around, and there probably is concern about they get knocked over.
Would the rain be a factor there?
The snow, would the rain there be a factor?
They're closed.
Yeah, they're closed. They're really closed. They're closed with like vents. Think of a vent with a chimney with like a lid on the top.
So what we have, we like menorahs in the house, but my son and we bought a lantern with oil. I take the lantern, put it outside on the front door.
Very nice. Okay, there
Right.
you go. There you should be so.
And the goyim pass by or whatever. It's like
the goyim think it's Christmas.
I don't know what they think. It's a single. Every night there's just one lantern there.
Very nice.
Now that I know it's only one I need, right? It's like
That's
perfect.
it.
It's like a
Hurricane lamp, yeah.
It's like you know the old-fashioned like in a
Right,
candy
right. Very nice.
with glass,
kerosene,
with glass kerosene. You know, and all that stuff.
hurricane lamp.
So at any rate, this is so that's perfect. So you're doing well. Okay, well send us a picture when we get to Hanukkah. Well, maybe we'll come visit. I
Right by
don't
my house.
know. Now,
How long was it late for?
Oh, it lasts for hours.
Yeah, it should be.
hours,
It should be.
hours, you know, a lantern.
okay, so once again, where do you put it on the door outside? This is the ideal place. In the Hayadar ba'aliyah, if you lived on an aliyah as an attic, but it really means like a second story.
Yeah.
These houses went only as far as the second floor. The second floor was many times additions built on the roof. Right? We find cases coming up with people on Aliyah, and they lived up there. So manicha b'chalon asmucha l'reshus harabim. So there you don't put it by the door because nobody's going to see it at the door. Probably was a ladder of some sort. At any rate, you put it on the window facing Reshut Harabim. V'shat hasakana manicha al shulchan v'dayo. And during the time of sakana, you light it on your table, and that's sufficient. Now, what is this sakana that we're talking about? So, what kind of danger is it? So, there's back to the goyim. So Rashi actually in Daf Mem Hey, the Gemara actually talks about whether there was why don't I tell you about the danger, and I can tell you about the Rashi in Mem Hey. So the Rashi here in the Tosafos seems to say this was a group called the Chabarim. The Chabarim were a group of fanatic priests, maybe Zoroastrians, who were fire worshippers, and during their holidays, that you could not light at all. So there were different types of holidays. Some holidays you could only light at a certain time. Some holidays you couldn't light at all. Some holidays they confiscate the lights.
Because it was like because they were doing it.
Because they were doing it. All the fire had to be used for their temple, right? And it was pretty. You got into big trouble if you had lights in your house. And it sounds kind of funny when you talk about all ancient cultures have festivals of lights. So this appears to be a festival of lights at the shrine as opposed to the other places. Now,
the Zoroastrians, like fire is their sacred thing.
Correct. Right, but this
It's sun worship, isn't it?
right. So I'm not sure if it's
fire, Ahura, Mazda, or whatever their main.
So I'm not sure it's actually the Zoroastrians.
For sure.
I don't know anything about that.
See, Zoroastrians, I'm sure fire is sacred.
Right. Let's see what these people are called. Let's look up Chabarim.
What's a Chabarim? I wouldn't say Chabarim or Zoroastrians. That I wouldn't.
I don't know what these are. Chabarim.
No
Chabarim. I don't know. I don't know. I have to look up. What is do we have anyone with an art scroll? Do they tell us what these people were?
It just says that the Persians celebrated all.
Well, there was a type of Persian.
Kindling of light was permitted.
They don't identify these people? Okay. Let's see what
The art
Zoroastrian.
scroll does. It means I'm sleeping. I mean, this. Okay, hold on.
Zoroastrian.
Whatever they were.
But it was caused quite a problem.
Apparently.
Zoroastrianism. We know what Zoroastrianism. Well, the world is leisure month is the place you dwell in the okay.
Ahura Mazda.
I'm going to have to look up what these were. I'm not sure if it was actually Zoroastrian or someone else. Okay, at any rate, but the point of it was that these were that you couldn't have fire. Now, if you were to light inside your house, so apparently there were some times where they would check and they would make spot checks. So if you lit in your house and you kind of close the windows and you block things out, maybe they wouldn't see you. If you lit outside at your entrance to your house, it was going to be seriously a problem. Now, in Mem Hey, Daf Mem Hey, it actually discusses, there's a discussion, this is where it's talking about muktzah, whether if you have a Hanukkah menorah, whether you could move it after it went out. And it talks about this once again. It talks about this concept that they were allowed to do it because of the sakana, not while it was burning, but apparently in other words, even just having a menorah out, meant that you were a bad person. So
it meant that you were probably using
right.
it for fire.
Can you move the Chanukah menorah? And Rashi says achar shekava, afterwards, because of the shabari they shouldn't see it. They shouldn't see it. It was out or it was used and so forth. Now, so the Gemara has a whole discussion about that, but it underscores the fact that this was a serious concern. Now, the Tosfos asks the obvious question: why does this appear to be a greater concern for the Chanukah menorah than
for Shabbos?
Than for Shabbos candles, right? So,
Good question.
Because it looks like Tosfos suggests that they were allowed to keep candles to eat by. So they were allowed to have some illumination in the house in order to eat by. So therefore, Shabbos candles were okay. Hanukkah candles were not. Because that's why they couldn't light them outside. You're lighting outside is clearly meant to not has nothing to do with you eating in the house.
Right. Plus, if they knew our law, which said asur lishtamesh bahem, then they'd say, hey, you're only doing it not for any utilitarian purpose, but strictly as a sacred thing. So then for sure.
Right. And the clear thing is this time of lighting the menorahs, and in fact the Shabbos candles as well, was the time when people were up and around. Right, and what we know about the lighting Hanukkah candles, especially Shabbos, it's on Shabbos, it's going to be done before. Tosfos actually suggests that it's possible that this may have not just been the chaborim, even though the Gemara that we have in Memhei talks about mikame chabori. So Tosfos suggests that possibly this may refer to a different kind of sakana, different kind of people who didn't want to let us do Hanukkah candles. Had nothing to do with fire worship. It was some kind of decree against the Jewish people. So, from our Gemara, which talks about sakana, it's not clear, it does not use the word term here, chabari. Rashi talks about the chabari here, Tosfos here talks about the chabari. But it was a greater problem if they would light it outside. Okay. So it appears from our Gemara that if they lit inside the house, this was acceptable. Right? That's what our Gemara says. Not that they couldn't light at all. So I told you blocked out the window. I was really conjecturing that they blacked out the window. You could read the Gemara that they were allowed to light inside on the table where they were eating. There'd be another way of interpreting it, right?
So
but apparently, or they may have only confiscated lights that were outside, right? But internal lights were okay. So I'm trying to look up, maybe I can try to send you guys out an email if I find out more about this chaborim and what exactly the decree was. But apparently this was a real kind of thing, and it went on for quite a while. So when the Gemara refers to this sakana, if it really is about the chabari, this was a real concern. Now the application, by the way, of this Gemara is not just to the chabari circumstances, but it becomes applied really to Jews when we live in a diaspora.
Any sakana,
right? So any sakana. Now we don't live in an area where there's a whole lot of sakana, but we do come from a tradition of Europe or even us Sfaradim who come from other countries where there were persecutions, that leaving Jewish symbols outside unattended or as indications of who you were when you were not there to protect them may have not been the wisest thing, or might not have been the most clever thing, or the easiest thing to protect. So therefore it became, as Jews move into Europe and into the Middle Ages, where things are less docile and less quiet and less peaceful, so you find that we tend to really rely more upon lighting the menorahs on the table vidayo. Sure. Okay, so that's why today you don't find that many people lighting outside in Thornhill. Sure. You could. Right? Yeah. There's no reason that we brave Canadians can't go outside bundled up on our parkas and light them outside and have the proper boxes to protect the lights. Right? But we don't. Okay? We just don't. Especially, and in fact, what people many times do is they will light it in their window, like the people live in Aliyot, right? And they'll leave the light in the window where people can see it on the outside. That's all right. So it's almost like a compromise.
I've got a menorah. It's a custom-made one. I didn't have it because my father-in-law was a jeweler and he had it made. So there's a silver. I don't know how you put it. The rear is silver. In the front, you've got the candles. So if you're looking at it from the back, you can't see the light.
Right.
So you light it in the window facing
So
inside?
that was the question I asked Rabbi Tal. I said, how do we do it? Should it be visible from the outside of it? He said, the Ikka Pesume
Is internal.
is for your own family.
Correct.
It's not for the people in
your
the
own
streets.
family.
It's for your own family.
You see old menorahs, not silver but brass. You see them like you
With
see
a
the
back,
back.
yes.
And you see,
No, but that's a good question.
So
For
the
sure.
answer is yes, it's for us. The truth is, when we live in an area like Thornhill where 50% of the community is Jewish, approximately 50% are Jewish. So that is Pirsum Nisa for the people outside. Okay, I don't know. You probably all have Jews around you. They're not all coming to buy it, but they're all
Sure.
right. So there is Pirsum Nisa for them,
But
and
is
there's
the Pesume Nusa for the Goyim? Or for
no, it's
the
not for
Jews?
it's for the
No,
Jews.
it's
For the
for the
Jews.
Jews.
For the Jews. It's really
I
for
thought
the
it was
Jews.
for the goyim too.
No, it's not. It's really not
No,
for the
but you're
goyim.
thinking-
Lubavitch Chabad is taking on the holiday, and they have the parades, and they have the
No, there was a whole.
the
There
menorahs.
was, I heard, a whole machloket when the Rebbe wanted to start that whole thing.
I don't know, but whatever it is, it's really the real purpose is to do it for other Yidden, and they will tell you the same thing. It's not really meant for the goyim. I don't know what they will
In case
tell
other
you.
Yidden don't know about this, you mean?
No, not they don't know about it. It's part of celebrating the holidays, the Pirsum Nisa among Jews. It's actually Jewish pride. It's very positive.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. It's like
like they write like
Don't use that expression.
Jewish pride.
It has
All
a
right,
particular
it's
connotation.
about
Exactly.
Jewish identity. Jewish identity.
Next thing you're gonna say, how can you-
Okay, you know what? I'm just trying to break. I will, but Pirsum Nisa is clearly only to other Jews.
I got you.
Okay, if goyim happen to see it, that's fine. It's not prohibited. But the real mitzvah of Pirsum Nisa, it underscores, is for other members of the Jewish faith community. Whether they're doing it or not doing it, maybe they'll see it, maybe they'll get impacted. And by the way, there's a mitzvah for them to see the Hanukkah candles, even if they don't light it. Right, and we'll come to it in a couple of dapim here. But if you can't light Hanukkah candles and you see a Hanukkah menorah, you can still say Sh'asa Nisim Lavosenu. Right, you can't say the bracha of Lahadlik Ner Shel Chanukah, but you say the bracha Sh'asa Nisim. So these people who may not light or maybe didn't light that night or are running around because they're busy doing holiday shopping, right? They'll get a mitzvah seeing your Hanukkah menorahs, whether they make the bracha or not. The other part in today's societies, of course, is we are a much more internal society. I mean, there's much more family time or time in the house, right? The windows that you have are windows to the world, but they're really closed. The windows that existed in the days of the Gemara were simply holes in the wall. They were blocks of wood that they took out. There was no panes of glass. So when you had to light a menorah in the window, it really was kind of toughing it out, especially if it's a cold climate. That's why they're lighting it at the door. Door had hinges, the door closed. The door was wood, so they lit outside when you come in and out. You'll see where in a moment, in a few lines. Okay, so and the other part about our modern society is we're out much later, right? People are out very late in our society. They're out at all hours till 11, 12 o'clock at night. Because we have light and because we get up late, we follow our same schedule every day, regardless of sunrise and sunset, and because we're just a sleep-deprived society in general, right? People do not get enough sleep, and they have so much to do that they don't have time to really begin to think what they should be doing. They're all looking at their devices, which can work 24 hours a day. Okay, so and the other part about our modern society is we have high rises, like condos and apartment buildings, which if you're above 20 feet. If you're above 40 feet, 20 amos, right, which is not that high, right? Your first level is probably 10 feet at most, maybe 8 feet in many cases, 8-9 feet.
It's an 8 feet ceiling plus a little bit between.
Right, so it's about
10 feet.
Correct, so it's about 10 feet, including maybe if you're a little bit off the ground, and your next level is going to be another 8 feet. So whatever it is, but 2 stories is 20 feet. So you can maybe do 3 stories, 4 stories, and then you capped out at the maximum where people look. The reality is, if you're looking higher than 4 stories, you're not really seeing a full menorah. You're seeing what you think is a menorah and identifies menorah because you've seen a big menorah. It looks like an ant, little ant's menorah up there. So therefore, for people who live in those high-rise buildings, the real Pirsum Nisa is really for themselves. It's nice to put it in the window, but only if they can see it as well, as Rabbi Taub told you. So ner Chanukah mitzvah lichal Pesach beiso mi b'chotzim ha'yador b'aliyah manich b'chalon v'asmuch l'shus harabim u'v'shas ha'sakona manich al shulchan v'dayo. Okay, so that's the halacha, and as we talked about what exactly a sakona really is. Amar Rava. Tzarech ner acheres l'shtamesh le'ora. So this is where we come to the shamas. So one of the two reasons that we have a shamas, or shamash as some people call it, well, there are two reasons. One reason, sorry?
I'm sorry, I'm listening.
One reason is what Rava says here, which is the fact that it gives ambient light. So that the light that we are going to use in that room is going to be not only it's mixed together with the Hanukkah light. So what you say is the light that you're using is the light from the shamash, which is not holy, which is not sanctified light. So that's why it's called a helper candle. It doesn't use the term here shamash. Actually, it says lishtamesh. Right? The shamash is we're using it. The other term that we're going the other reason it's there for, which will come up in the Gemara Daf Chavbet and Amaraf and Amad Beis, is whether it's how to light the candles. Right? If you did not have a shamash, how would you light the candles?
You use a match.
You use a match, and that works for about the first two candles. And then what do you do?
You have to use a few others.
So either use another match, or you light from one candle to the other.
What I do is I put the shamash.
Be careful about saying what I do before you walk the plank.
I've walked the plank many a time. I've walked the plank many a time.
Okay.
So this will be another time.
Here we go.
Okay.
This is it.
So what I do, I don't know if it's right or wrong, I light the shamash. I have a candle, I have a Hanukkah candle. So I light the shamash, which is oil.
Okay.
And then with that Hanukkah candle, I light everything.
Good.
Then I blow out the Hanukkah candle, and the shamash is still there.
Right, so you have
Which is
actually.
the Hanukkah?
What he said. What Archie
Hanukkah
said.
is oil. Hanukkah is oil.
Let me explain.
Shabbos is oil, the others are what?
For those who didn't catch it, let me
That's
explain what
it.
Archie said. Here's what Archie said. Okay.
Yeah.
And let me explain. Let me fill out the two purposes of the shamash candle. Then I'll tell you what he did. He split them apart.
Yeah.
The second reason for the shamash candle is you don't want to light ideally from one candle to the second candle. So you don't want to take a match and light the first candle, then you take the first candle, like the second candle, third candle, fourth candle. Because then you're using from one to the other. Right. So and you're diminishing or something like that.
You're using it for a purpose, aren't you?
Well, you're using it for a purpose, and whether that's the right thing or not. The question really is if you're using it for something else, would be even worse. So this way I'm using a shamash, which is not sanctified, to light each of the candles. And I've got enough light on it. You could use a birthday candle for that matter for this purpose. Right? Or you can use a very long match, like the long matches they have to light the barbecues, to light the fireplaces. That could probably work as well. So what we tend to do is we tend to combine both in the same contraption. The shamash that we're using to light, that's why it's called the shamash. It's a helper candle to help light the candle get going. And then we also keep it burning there so that we have the ambient light that we can use to l'shtamesh b'hem. What Archie was saying is that on some of your menorahs, the shamash candle, the ninth candle, is also an oil menorah. It's an oil menorah and it's an oil shamash.
Right.
It's going to be very hard for you to light the shamash because the oil will spill out. Very good. So therefore, what he does is he uses a candle to light the 8 candles, and then he lights the shamash.
First I light the shamash.
So what you've done is you really have 2 different shamashim, but once you've lit it, you don't need to help it anymore, and you have an additional place to get light.
The shamash, that's the oil one, you use really l'shtamesh only.
Right, I light it first.
Correct.
Right.
And then I light all the other ones.
And then you light the other ones not from the shamash?
No, from the
but
candle.
from the candle.
Right, then when I finish, I blow it out. I use it next day till it goes down, and I throw it away.
I got
a few days.
Okay. So therefore, here the term is we're not called the shamash; it's called the shtamesh la'ora. So Amar Rava says, we're good. So you're off the plank. Okay, you're back on the ship. Amar Rava, tzarech ner acheres l'shtamesh la'ora. You need another candle to use the light, to benefit from the light. We're talking about really like quality reading, like you want to discern something. Like, sometimes today we no longer have flashlights. We have these things that each of them have a torch. So you want to get into a corner, you really want to use that. So you wouldn't want to use a Hanukkah menorah for that light, for that kind of purpose. V'ika medura lo tzarech. And if there is medura is a torch, in other words, there's other light in the area that's very bright, you don't need to have a shamash for that. You need the shamash to light the candles. We didn't get to that part. That's on Chav Beis Chav Gimel. But for the idea of to have ambient light, you wouldn't need it. V'adam chashiv hu. And if we're dealing here with an Adam Chashiv, who does not use a Medura, Adam Chashiv, a Medura was a kind of jumping kind of flame. So a person of significance was an intelligent person. You really couldn't read by a Medura. we've all seen enough of these Viking, ancient Ben-Hur kind of movies where they have all these torches going on. This is a jumping light. It's a lot of oil or a lot of wick or a lot of wood, and therefore the flame just bounces up and down. So if you want to do quality intellectual work, you really can't read with a Medulla. You're going to read with a Ner, which is a single light. That's why we had the Gemara Masechet Shabbos already. Where was it? Yud Beis or Hey? I don't remember. That you can't read La'or Haner,
right?
Because our can, because you may come to adjust it. For us, it's not a problem because we have so much ambient light, right? So if one candle goes out, if one fluorescent tube goes out, or one light on the chandelier goes out, you're not going to need to adjust it. But where in those days when they had single lights that were not flickering but straight, if it went out, it could be a big problem. So they didn't read by the light of candlelight. So Adam Chasha was a person, the Rashi says, she'eino ragil l'shtamesh la'or haMedulla, does not use a Medulla. Doesn't use a Medulla because we're dealing here with a refined individual. And a refined individual, a cultured individual, is doing cultured work. And it probably was not having, arm wrestling. It probably wasn't wrestling on the floor or physical sports. It was more reading and learning and studying and so forth. So in such a case, if he wanted to read and wanted to see something that was small, he wouldn't use the Medulla because the flame was jumping all around. He'd go over to the Hanukkah menorah, which has single flames, which was steady, and read from that. So Adam Chashiv hu alpha gavdika Medulla tzarich ner acheres. Okay, so that's really what we pass. One of the reasons for the shamish for the Hanukkah candle.
Right.
Okay, good. Time for one more piece, and this piece that we're going to read to you comes from a book called Megillat Tanit. Did we ever talk about Megillat Tanit?
Yes, we did.
We did at one point. We talked about it. I don't remember where.
I had it in my.
He had it in the back.
When we did.
When you did Tanit.
Tanit.
Right.
So we saw that my copy, for example, or whoever
Right.
Steinsaltz had
Printed
also
Megillat Tanit. Megillat Tanit is a listing of all the holidays through the year that they could not fast or could not give hespedim or could not do both, which reflected, usually they reflected victories against enemies, or in many cases they reflected victories of the Prushim against the Tzdukim. So which was a serious problem, right? We're going to do Yom Kippur tomorrow night, right? And as we know, they would stay up all night with the Kohen Gadol and review with him the halachas, and also make sure he didn't become a Balkari. And they would make him swear before he did the avoda that he would not deviate from the avoda because
belonged to the Tzduki party.
Because many cases, as we know, in the days of the Second Temple, that we know that he was a member that he bought the office. Right, and the fact that what it tells us that these people who bought the office usually died the same year. It's amazing. It's fascinating. This is not the Ishiti who has a death sentence. It seems to be historical, probably because the Romans wanted to sell to the next guy. Once they I'm serious. Once
the Romans killed him.
Who knows who killed him?
I thought Hashem cursed him.
No, we don't know. Here's what we knew. They had a very short tenure. It's like Russian spies in England. Okay, who did it? They were there. They were only there and traveling.
So the Romans wanted to resell it next year, so they just...
Right, so once you sold it to this guy, he bought it, you can't get anything more from him, so you kill him, so you got to sell it again.
Didn't he realize that?
Did they realize it? You know what? For covet, people do anything. This is really, it's all about covet.
Okay.
I'm serious. So they thought they could beat the odds. So maybe it wasn't every year, but they really had very short tenures. Okay. Bottom line was they were actually tzdukim, and what they couldn't really watch the Kohen Gadol is when he went into the Kodesh Kodashim and he had to mix the ketores with the coals, and this had to be done in the Kodesh Kodashim, not before. The tzdukim learned based upon their reading of the Torah should be done before, and they couldn't really stop that. There was no one there to stop it, and that was the problem. The Gemara says that there was one tzduki who told his father when he came out, he says, you know what happened? When I was in there, I did it like the Tzdukim did it. Okay, and as the end of the story is, he didn't live out his year. He died that year. A terrible death. I don't know. Not clear what a terrible death was. The Gemara seems to say he was killed. The angels killed him. Now, how do they know the angels killed him? It's not really clear. So I think Rashi says that, or Tosa says that he died with his feet straight. That shows, because angels have a straight foot, so that shows that the murder was an angel who set him up that way to indicate what it was. Well, bottom line was, it did happen apparently. It did happen, but it happened infrequently, and they wanted to protect against it. Bottom line was, this is what the Megillat Tanit is. So I'll just read to you, we'll go through this, and then we'll start here again next time. My Chanukah. So the Tana Rabbanan, he calls it Tana Rabbanan, but it's really a quote from Megillat Tanit. By the way, the Megillat Tanit is a complicated document. There are different parts to it. We're not quite sure that the Megillat Tanit, as we have it, is all from the days of the Second Temple. It's possible that there are additions built into it, which are really from the time of the Gemara that already incorporate, for example, in this quote. You'll notice some of it is in Hebrew, and some of it, I'm not sure here, but some of it goes back into Aramaic. So here we go. B'chavhei b'Kislev Yomei deChanukah. On the 25th of Kislev days of Chanukah, Timnaya Shmona. There 8. Inun are lo lemespeid b'hon lo nesanat b'hon. Not to give his speidim and not to fast. What happened? Kishenechnasu Yavanim laheichal. When the Yavanim came into the Beis Hamikdash, that's the heichal. Timu kol hashmanim shebeheichal. They made all the shemen impure. Shegavra malchut beit Chashmonaim v'nitzchum. When the Chashmonaim were victorious and defeated them. Badkuv lamatzu el pach echad shel shemen. They only found one cruse of oil, shahayamunach b'chotam Moshe Kohen Gadol, that had the chotam of the Kohen Gadol was unopened, so they knew it was not used, didn't become tummy from the goyim. V'lo hayabol elahadlik yom echad. Only had the like one day. There was a small cruse of oil, or just enough for one night. It was a single pack, as we would call it. Nasa boneis v'dliku mimenu shmona yamin. So it burned for 8 days until they got more oil. But it took 8 days. It's not very clear. It take them 8 days to go find olive orchards. It take them 8 days to become tahar, perhaps. They had to wait 7 days for tamei, and then they go to the mikveh and so forth. But it took them 8 days, and this lasted for 8 days. L'shon acheret. Next year, kavum vasum yamim tovim b'halel v'hodah. The next year, they came and they made it Chanukah with Hallel and Hodah. Hallel is Hallel. Hodah is
Thanks. Great.
Thanks what? Thank you very much.
Thanks Hashem.
So Hodah is actually it's the Al Nisim, which is included right in the brach of Modim. Okay, so we're thanking God. So the Al Nisim is what is really defined as Hodah. Okay, and what it really means to say, if you look in Rashi says, and I'll just read the Rashi, it's about 10 lines in the bottom in Rashi, Lo shasur b'melacha, they're not prohibited in melacha like most other holidays, Shelo nikvo elakrot halel v'lomer al hanisim b'hodah, to say the al nisim in the brach of Hodah, which is the brach of Modim. So that's where it comes from, and it was not meant to become a day that's prohibited by activities. Okay, so that is actually the source that we have, the source that comes up with the Nes of the Pach Shemen. We'll pick up here next time, and once again we got a whole lot of Hanukkah that's really ahead of us. Just to point out that we're going to take a long extended holiday break, because next Monday is Yontif, the Monday after that is Yontif, and the Monday after that is a Goyishi Yontif.
It is?
Yes, it is Thanksgiving. And we will pick up the 15th of October, I think it's going to be. I will send you guys a remember, but in the interim, when everybody want to share everybody a Gemar Chasima Tova, Git Gebench Yor, Gezinch Yor, Kadosh Baruch Hu should answer our tefillos, Kadosh Baruch Hu help us do real tshuva and really change and internalize what we want to do, and Kadosh Baruch Hu should bring peace and harmony for Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael, especially for Jews around the world, and grant us what we really need. Have a good year.
Amen.